Okay, I'm looking forward to our conversation today, and hopefully more of our team members will join us. We have a few things to discuss, and I have a great announcement for next week I'm going to share with you. But things are moving along, and I'm just thinking about authenticity and the inner voice and how important that is as a first step to really knowing who you are and your self-awareness. And so I want to talk today about the applying some of what we've learned to your authenticity, to being authentic from two particular perspectives. So before we close last week, I suggested that you think about what animals are your animals. Were you with us last week, Peggy? You weren't with us last week, were you? Okay, last week what we did is we had everyone think about what animal represented their energy in intuition and in integrity. So if you think about animals, hi Steve. If you think
Hello.
about animals, and they have different energy, like a mosquito, and when I say animals, I mean the whole group of animals. Not just four-legged, flying, anything that's not human, that's a living thing. But they are different animals. Like an owl and a panther have different energies, and a bear, they have different energies. So asked everyone to think about their energies actually all over the grid, but we're only going to talk this week about your energies in the inner voice. So what energy do you see yourself in? What animal do you see yourself as intuition, as integrity, and as inspiration? And I also talked about the authenticity grid as an energy system. It's a system that helps people understand the energy that lives within them. And one of the things one of the reasons that's so important is because with what's happening in the world and where we're transitioning, research says, the futurists say that in a short time, we won't even know what it means to be human. There will be so many robots and so many changes in the human DNA and the changes in society that people will forget what it was even like to be human. So that energy system helps you remember that being human is not just mean that you're in this physical body moving around by your own will, but also that there's energy in you. We're on an electromagnetic system anyway, and we have energy within us, and how we express that energy represents who we are, our humanity and our authenticity. And if we lose that and forget that, then we've almost forgotten what it's like to be human. So one of the ways to remember that and to get in connection with that is to look at it as an energy system, recognizing the energy that flows within you. And if you can then connect that with different animals, you can be more clear of who you are and how you change. I mentioned that when I did my first rug at 28, my my inspiration, we're kind of on inspiration now. My inspiration at that time was a snail, because I took things very slowly, listening and allowing them to grow and develop over a slow period of time. But now my inspiration is panther, because I'm more dramatic about it. I'm more clear on what I'm doing and where I'm going with it. Same focus, same, is it intuition or is it motivation? Is it, what's the drive? How's it working you? But I'm driven in a different way. I'm driven more with more passion because I have more clarity. As I look at the difference between 28 and now and what has changed in me and how that has changed. So you got to look at yourself in those ways a little bit today and just see how your energy has changed. Hi, Peaches. Good to see you. So first of all, I want to ask you, well, the second thing I'm going to ask you, I'm asking you two things today. The first thing I want you, and you're reflecting more on yourself and your own authenticity. So the first thing I want you to talk about is what animal energy can you relate to that represents your intuition, integrity, and inspiration? Those are the three parts of the inner voice. Inner voice is where authenticity begins. This is where it starts for you. This is the foundation of who you are in authenticity. So what are the animals that you see that represent you in those areas? And I'm going to go back to my notes from last week for those of you that were on the call and see what you told me. Well, I wrote a lot since last week. Where is it? There we are. So, Marie, I'm going to start with you. And you told us last time that your intuition was an eagle, and that well, you told me all three. You said your intuition was an eagle, your integrity was a black stallion, and your inspiration was a butterfly. You want to comment on that and why you chose those animals, Marie? Yeah, I know you're still on mute, I guess you realize that. And she's in the car.
I said, I'm just talking.
That's better. Yeah, you're talking away, huh?
So I think you might have it the opposite. The between the stallion. What did you say is my?
I had eagle, stallion, butterfly.
Okay. What did you have? The stallion. I think that's my intuition, and the eagle was my integrity.
Okay.
And the butterfly, I forgot what the black one was for.
Inspiration.
Inspiration. Pretty much that's me. The horse, the stallion, because it holds its own, and most of the time, it becomes a stallion because no one can really capture it or tame it or dummy it down type of thing. And for me, that has been my animal for a very long time, because I just no longer want to be controlled or pushed into things I don't want to do. I don't want to be tamed. I want to be me, and sometimes just leave me alone type of thing. My intuition with the eagle, right? Is it intuition? Integrity, intuition. Intuition for the eagle for me is just no, I'm sorry, integrity is the eagle. And I think for me, there's an awareness, being proud, being bold about having integrity, maintaining integrity, knowing what to do kind of thing, I think is integral as well. And then inspiration, as far as the butterfly, is just very creative. I'm a very creative person. Love doing things with my hand, can think of things, create programs, that, creativity. And I think of the butterfly because the butterfly, first of all, there's a metamorphosis that butterfly goes through, and the transformation. So butterfly basically is the representation of what they went through. And I think that creativity comes out or flows stronger in me after I've gone through some transformation in my life.
Very good. I like that, the way you put them together. And then also, I want you guys to look at how those three animals connect with each other, so that you flow, that you know how they flow.
Okay.
So that's good. So Steve, you said monkey for intuition and lion for integrity. And what do you say for inspiration?
So I guess I'm repeating others, but my inspiration is a butterfly, which actually is on my business card.
Oh, yeah, I see. And look at it's on Bonita's background. You can't see it, Maria, I don't think, but Maria,
I see that.
you got her beautiful background. Yeah.
And I had selected last year the butterfly for my website because it really spoke to me as far as the evolution and the transformation into something that I think is so beautiful and so confident. That the butterfly has a history and it's so confident. And for me, it inspires me that, because I can reflect back on more difficult times when I didn't make really good decisions for myself or my family. Wow. And that I've really kind of worked hard internally to reflect and become a better person. And so that helps me a lot.
And it makes me think about the metamorphosis, where a
Yeah.
butterfly, when they're in the cocoon, that's the introverted side of you, from what
Yeah.
I'm looking at it. And then so you're coming out, you're flying out of that and looking out, peeking out to the world a little more. So
Yeah.
yeah. And I'm gonna do this again. This is Steve's book.
Yeah, thank you.
He just got out recently, which I have written a testimony for.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you very
I
much.
encourage you to
Yeah.
do your own book as well. Yeah. Peggy, tell me about your animals. Unmute yourself. Thank you.
Inspiration, hummingbird. Integrity, leopard. No, yeah, leopard. And intuition is a crocodile.
Inspiration?
No, inspiration is a hummingbird. Integrity is a leopard. Intuition is a crocodile.
Okay. Why a crocodile? That's interesting.
When I got my Reiki attenuation, I was told that I would have a dream, that usually that you might have a dream or something, or some type of experience that would help you that will let you know that this is an attenuation, that you did have some spiritual connection with this. And one night I had a dream that a crocodile got after me. I was running from my house, which has significance. That's my body. And I fell into a pit, and the crocodile crawled in after me, and I was just screaming, trying to get out. And the crocodile means that you have that you have a power, but that you don't understand it, and you therefore it does not come forth, but it's there. So the leopard, my daughter said that I reminded her of a leopard because of my face shape. And I was thinking about integrity today, and I guess any type of big cat, I guess, could signify integrity, because they tend to be loners, and they have to depend on what's in themselves. For instance, I was thinking about integrity and making a decision to open up in the midst of this coronavirus. Some states are choosing to open up. So if you're the governor or a leader, you really have to know what your purpose is, because you're like a captain. You're like a Captain Picard on Star Trek. You're like a Captain Picard on Star Trek, where you are the captain and you have so many people giving you information from their perspective. And you have a problem, and Worf is going to give you something about security, and then the doctor's going to give you something about medicine, and then there's going to be the one that has to pilot the ship. They all give you that information.
Right.
And so you have to know where your purpose is. You have to know your integrity. You have to know what you are about, so that you can make the proper decision. You can't be swayed one way or the other. And if you are, you have to have a good reason.
Very good. Thank you. I have hummingbird in mind too, but my hummingbird is intuition and yours is inspiration. So that's cool. Yeah. All right, Bonita. What's your, unmute yourself, please. Thank you. What are your animals? What do you see?
I see the butterfly. So I have the butterfly in my background.
And where's the butterfly on the grid?
Failed that test.
You didn't fail it.
Uh,
Intuition, integrity, or inspiration?
Inspiration, the butterfly is definitely plays a role in inspiration. And I'm gonna say the lion plays integrity for me. And what was the last one? I did
Intuition, intuition.
intuition. I don't know how I want to say this, but I'm gonna say it anyway. Scripture talks about be harmless as a dove, but be wise as a serpent. So I might want to say I want to be a serpent, but then again, how I'm using it, or I'll say dove.
Dove? Okay.
Hmm.
And you know, it changes. It changes over time. And
Okay.
sometimes by necessity, and as you get to know yourself differently, and as you change by, just like we talked about how our values, our priorities and our values change based on what's happening in society. So likewise, these change as well as you grow and get
Okay.
to know yourself. Right.
Okay.
So,
Thank you.
thank you. Peaches, unmute yourself, please. Can't hear you. Are you talking? Oh, there you go. Good.
Here I am.
There you are.
I don't have all of them, but I was thinking that a fox on intuition,
A fox? Okay.
a fox, because a fox is thinkers.
Yeah.
They don't just strike because they look out for all avenues. They kind of sneak up on you. They just don't do it. You have to have insight of how you feel, and your brain might be thinking one thing, but your you're feeling something else, and usually you should go on your feelings as opposed to what your brain thinks, because your brain is only looking at what it's looking at, and intuitiveness is more internal.
Yes.
And internal is, for me, a fox.
Okay. All right, sly one. Okay.
Fly. Fly with smart.
Yes. Yes.
Inspiration is lion. I know everybody's repeating the same thing, but for me, inspiration is a lion, because if you look at the lioness in the field, they take care of their young by themselves.
Okay.
They hunt and they bring the whatever the kill is to their family. It's family first for them.
Right.
And that's inspiration, because that's your background, that's your bone, that's what you need in order to succeed, is that inspiration.
And then what about the integrity?
And integrity, I don't have an animal for that yet.
Okay. Well, think about it. So, because it changes, and it'll pop out at you and let you know. It'll talk to you or run by you or something, or fly by you or something, and you'll recognize it. So we're going to be working on our animals as we go through and talk about each of the different dimensions. Now we're on the third dimension of the inner voice, and that is inspiration. And so what I want you to do next is I want you to take a minute and think about your life, and think about the two most inspirational events that have occurred in your lifetime, what they were and when they might have occurred. And then what might be the difference in the energy of them. I want to help you look at life as the energy that flows through you and around you, because life's about energy. Energy has shifted now that we're not working, and people are scared, and you can't get toilet paper. So it's a different energy now than it was 3 months ago. That it'll be 3 months from now. Energy is shifting a lot faster now. So how is your energy shifting? What has inspired you most? What are the two things in your life that have been most inspirational? When did they occur? And we're going to look at how they impacted your authenticity. How did it impact your authenticity? And what might be the difference in the energy of those two things? Has anyone thought of their two already? What has been most impactful in your life? What has inspired you? Maybe made you become who you are?
Norma?
Yes, Bonita.
I think what was one of the most impactful things that happened for me was when I used to belong to this organization called Black Women's Forum.
Yes.
And I was served on a committee, and I was able to give Rosa Parks her flowers, to present her flowers to her.
Everyone gave it to her. Oh, sweet.
Yeah. And that was one that it changed me forever, because I never thought I would meet someone from the civil rights movement.
Yeah.
and that was had that type of impact. That was one. Two was I guess I'll say my godmother. I mean, she passed, but her name was Lillian Mobley. And so she was very impactful on my life. So I say those are the two.
Great, great. All right, who wants to go next?
I'll go.
All right, Steve.
All right. So this is, man, you've hit a good point here. So the two that I want to share, one is with my father. So my father passed away about 5 years ago. We were not extremely close when we grew up, and then later I found out that's largely because we were probably both introverts and we just didn't have that much to say. But he had a lot to impart upon me by example. He worked hard. He provided for his family. He was a family person. That all inspired me, and have become some of my values and core beliefs as an adult. But especially one moment that I reference a lot is when he was about 80 years old and he was still in relatively good health, but we were talking about any regrets that he had in his life. And he was 80 years old. He worked, owned his own business, and he worked for others as a salesman. And but during the conversation, I found that he was a very high quality musician when he was in college, first chair, and he had dreams of being a musician. He wanted to go to Juilliard and pursue that dream. But he got called back to go back home to his family in Birmingham and run the family store. And he did that, and he would play the clarinet around the house, but he never pursued his dream. And that really stuck with me. He was a great person, and I learn a lot from him every day, but it really stuck with me that I mean, when I asked him what he regretted, he brought that up very quickly. So he'd been thinking about that for about 60 years. And I felt like, if I have the opportunity, then I don't want to have that same regret when I'm 80. And so it was one of the things that drove me to retire when I could and go back and try and write one of my passions when I was a kid, and just see where that brought me, because I didn't want to be sitting there when I was 80 feeling like I missed out on something that may have been a great part of my life. So, I mean, he was the reason for that.
Great inspiration.
The other inspiration, I would call it, was a bit darker, but it was just it inspired me in a way because it happened about 40 years ago, and my grandmother at the time, actually my dad's mother, lived with us, and she was suffering from dementia, and she lived with us, and I was a little teenager who ate too much, and I actually ate a whole pie out of the refrigerator.
Ooh, the whole pie.
And, yeah, and my folks later that night saw that the pie was gone, and they said, "Well, who ate the pie?" And I didn't say anything, and they assumed therefore that my grandmother ate it, who was not a big eater, but she was not herself in her older age, and she never said anything, and she was suffering, and she really probably didn't even understand what was going on. And I let her take the blame for it. And it really, I think about that also very frequently, that what a shameful moment in my life, I must say, that I reflect on 40 years later, because I let a frail but fantastic lady in her time take the blame for something that I did that I knew was wrong. And it's really inspired me to, and one of the, I guess one of the values we talked about a week or two ago was around honesty. And it really inspired me to, be honest and admit what I've done, and nobody else certainly should take the fall for my decisions. I need to own my own decisions. And so she left me a gift, really.
That is a good gift. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. That brings back some serious memories. I see why you say it touched something in you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Thank you for sharing. Yeah. Who would like to go next?
I'll go next.
Okay, Marie.
Ooh, he touched something in my heart. I think my dad. I actually was thinking about him the other day. He's no longer with us, but we do not have the best relationship. And I've come over the years, I've come to know that I am most like him in my thinking and in the way that I express myself. He just was not in touch with the emotional side. He was kind of already bankrupt when he started having kids, type of thing. So he never really knew how to express his feelings. And when he expressed them, they always came out wrong. And it was just difficult. Of course, I wasn't accepting it. I was rebellious or whatever. But when I look back over my life, I see, wow. I wish I had known what I know now, so that I could have been a better person to him when I was growing up, and I could teach him what I knew or what I was in touch with. If we could have been sharing the same thing, I think our relationship would have been way better than what it was. But I thank him for being who he is, and I honor him because the little that he did know, he gave his best. He gave 100%. He took care of us. He provided. He didn't graduate from high school, but he built our house, and he was very creative. He would make things in the middle of the night, and we would think he went to the store, and he literally made, furniture and cabinets and everything. And I look at him as my model as the creator, because I have that same gifting in me that I could look at something and create it. And I honor him, and I feel like the inspiration, I feel like, honestly, that where he left off, I picked up from him. And for me to carry it on, there's a lot of things that are in my life, like my heart for children in foster care. My dad was neglected as a child. And I remember times he would cry and I didn't understand it, but I understand it now that he didn't have what he was trying to give us, and he didn't know how to give it to us because he never had it. And I understand, you know, the different things that are really passionate and deep for me are the things that were in his heart, and I get to carry it on, and make something more of what he couldn't. And the other inspiration that I'd just been, I think, coming into 2020 was that I was born for such a time as this, that we all are, that we are needed. And the world needs us to be as authentic, because just like Norma said, really with this mental health crisis that they're calling it now, and the depression and the suicide and all of this, people have forgotten who they are. People forgot their value. They've been hurt. They're not healing. And they need people like us who can own their own truth, say, you know, I was not this perfect person. I did this to somebody, like Steve, you know, just said, and even me with my father. I didn't understand the repercussions it would have on my life at the time, being a child and in my own way, you know, type of thing. But we need people who are going to be authentic, because I'm looking a day to day and looking at the people. They're very unconscious. They're unaware of what's going on. And those will be the very ones who will be robotic, just doing, you know, what has been scripted to them to do, running in fear and just out of the ordinary. And I just feel like this pandemic, it reveals character. It reveals our character, who we really are. And unfortunately, I'm seeing a lot of people who are acting out of character. And I can't say that this is their true character, because they have allowed other things to come in and alter who they are. So I'm thankful for having this opportunity to stand up and just say, I want to be authentic. I want to help you be authentic, because we need you. You're valuable. We don't want you just to be locked away in your head, in your regret, in your unforgiveness, in your poor decisions or whatnot. We want you whole. We need you. We need you as a human, part of the race, you know. So
Thank you for sharing with me. That's very powerful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Peaches, you've been staring at the sky for the last few minutes. What you thinking about?
Everybody talking about their dads. You know, I grew up with a terrific dad. My dad was before his times. You know, my father would make us think out of the box. He would make us explain things that most people would take for granted. Or he would make us come up with a situation and ask, how would you get out of this situation? And as a kid, you would think, oh my gosh, why is he doing this? And then I have two brothers. And so after you leave from him, they say, Dad did it again. And they're like, oh my goodness. But we didn't understand that he was making us think out of the box, that he was expanding our vocabulary, because he would say, well, what does that mean? You know, so you had to come up with another word. He was making us imagine. He was just making us have critical thinking, something that you really don't think about. You take it for granted. You don't do it. So with him inspiring me, made me inspire my children to do the exact same thing. I didn't put them through the grueling thing like he did, but he pushed us to think out of the box. He pushed us to think further than we can see. And so I did that with my two children. And because of that, he inspired me, I inspired them. And in order to grow in life, you had to have an education, because he was deprived of an education, so he pushed that in our house, and so I pushed that in my house, you know. And thankfully, I have 2 kids that both graduated with their master's degree, and that all comes from him and what he wasn't allowed to do, but he was a much further out thinker than the average person. So he inspired me and made me inspire them. The second thing is, I was just talking to my son today. I went to a neighborhood school, elementary school, and they taught us just what they needed to teach us in order for us to move to the next grade. And when I got to junior college, and I realized that I call myself smart because I was getting A's and B's. But when I moved to a junior college, and when I went to the junior college, and I didn't know what 2 squared was, or 2 to the second power. I'm like, what is that? What is a big 2 with that little 2? What does that mean? Or a big 4 with the little 2 or little 3? What does that mean? So because of my lack of knowledge and the way that the schools that I went to, I made sure that my children didn't do the same thing. So I took them out of the neighborhood to go to school. And I wanted them exposed to things that they normally wouldn't get exposure to. I would take them to museums. I even took my kids to uh, a wine tasting place.
Oh, okay, progressive mom.
Not that they could drink or anything, but so that they would know what it's like. And then I would taste the wine and I would describe to them what it tastes like. And then I would ask them, okay, so which one do you think I should get? You know, stuff like that, because that's sort of back to my dad. He would do things like that to us, but not to that extent, but he would do things like that. And so I think that them growing up was more exposed than the average kid. And that's why they had no problem thinking that they had to go on to further education after college. It wasn't a question. It wasn't a question of, am I going to go to college or not? It was a question of what college am I going to go to?
Right, right.
And all of that come from my childhood and my dad inspiring me and me inspiring them. And today I had a conversation with my son and he's like, Mom, you know, you were a terrific mom. I thank you for exposing me to the stuff that I didn't even like, you know, because we couldn't go to an Italian restaurant and they order burgers. We're in an Italian restaurant, guys. What are you doing? Ordering burgers? No, that's not happening. You know, we're not going to go to a French restaurant and order burgers because that's the food that they like. No, you're going to try something on the menu that correlates with the restaurant that we're in. They didn't like me for a while, but it was okay. Today, they appreciate me like I appreciate my dad.
Very good. Thank you. That's very powerful. Thank you. Thank you. All right, Peggy. Unmute yourself. Oh, good.
So when I became a Muslim, and then the other one was when I found my maternal grandmother. So when I became a Muslim, I felt authentic and that there was a missing culture in it because Islam has its own culture. And I just felt whole because I felt I was missing something. It seemed to check all the boxes I was looking for. And the other one was when I turned 60, my brother was able to tell me who this particular relative was. My mother, who's deceased now, and I believe this happened in the 1930s, that she told me that she had a grandmother, and I think that her grandmother or great grandmother was 90 in the 1930s, and she'd always tell her about a sister that she had. That she said, as far as she remembers, that it was her and her mother, and they were waving to her sister, and she was just waving by, and they just continued to wave until they couldn't see her anymore. And my mother always got that story kind of backwards because, well, incorrect, because she said that she was on her way, that they were leaving Africa. And I said, that just doesn't sound right, that they would be waving bye-bye. And so what we found out was that she was born 100 years before me. She was born in 1851. And she was the oldest sister. Her name was Amelia. And we believe that she was sold. My mother's family are Gullah people. And I don't know if this happened on the islands or if it was in some place like Charleston or in that area, but we believe that she was sold away from her family, because on the census, you see on the census that you see all these people on the census, and you see her at one time, and then she just disappears. It doesn't say she died or anything, so we think that she got sold.
Mm-hmm.
But we found out who this I guess you'd be my great grandmother, and we found out that she was 100 years older than I was, and that she was the grandmother that my mother was talking about. She was her older sister. And so I kind of felt whole, because when I heard that story, I always felt really bad for her and for my family, because there was someone that was missing and they just didn't know. It's one thing to know what happened to your family, whether they died or something, but no one could tell us what happened to her, why she was missing from the census. And so my brother found out, and so we kind of believed that she was sold. So
And how did that inspire you? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
it inspired me to wholeness, to seek, not to seek wholeness, but to see in my life, to seek wholeness. And so when I became a Muslim, it's about being whole and finding the missing pieces of something that was really my religion. And then before we became Christians, we were Muslims. And so I just went back to my old religion. You know, it's something that, so I said, okay, that's what that is.
Interesting. Thank you. Interesting stories. I'm going to tell you mine also. My first one was when I was 8 or 9, actually, when I had my problems with my ear. And the only way I had my ear raped when I was in Buffalo, New York at 9. And by that time, we had tried different doctors, male and female. We had tried pills and drops and shots. Nothing would work. And my mother called Papa. And my grandfather was a Baptist minister, and he prayed over my ear, and that stopped my ear from hurting. And so obviously that inspired me in so many ways at such a young age, and it was very powerful, impactful. And the second thing that inspired me was about 25 years ago, when I learned that the government was pushing crack cocaine in the Black community. We kind of knew it as Black African Americans, but we couldn't prove it. But then we heard that that's what was going on. And that led me to some books, about 4 or 5 of that I lost 3 months of my life during that time, just reading, and understanding more about the conspiracy theories and just things that were going on that just shocked me and depressed me and, impacted me in all those ways. But it also inspired me to continue to learn about it and understand it and see what my role is in it, if any. Not that I can do a whole lot, but I can at least help people to be authentic and remember what it's like to be human while we still get a chance to be human. So it did do that for me. So now that it's come back again now, I pulled the books out and reread them and looked at when they were published and how much of it is going true, share it with people, and just for those that are not awake, to attempt to wake them up. So those were the things that inspired me. So as I listen to everybody and think about my own, I'm just struck with so many dads and fathers and grandfathers and grand and godmothers. So everybody had a person, an elder in their life who inspired them. And then also, most of you mentioned an individual and a situation, which I find is interesting. So we're inspired by both. So my question for you to reflect on, not to talk about now, but to think about in the next weeks, or first of all, you said that this experience it impacted you in different ways. So think about the difference of the two things that you mentioned and how they impacted you and how they are alive in your life now, how they continue to inspire you. So the difference in how you were inspired by each and how they impact your life now and how they help to direct your path and how they're related to your values. This is all inner voice. So in inner voice, intuition, integrity, inspiration are all connected. So how do you see the connection? What values did you adapt because of what inspired you? How did what inspired you impact your intuition then and now? How does it drive you now? How does it continue to inspire you? And then also think about, who are you inspiring? Who will mention your name if they hear this question 20 years from now? What are you doing in your life to be an inspiration to other people? What are you saying to them? What are you doing? How are you being a role model? What experiences are you creating for them to go through that will inspire them to be their best person within humanity when they're adults or as they grow older or wherever that is, or whoever those people might be? So I want you to think about that and reflect on that during the next week, and just see how that impacts you and how that modifies your thinking or drives your thought or drives your action. We think about authenticity grid with think, communicate, do. So the energies that you have impact your thinking, impact your communicating, impact your doing. The people that have inspired you, the events have impacted your thinking, your communicating, your doing, and therefore they impact your authenticity. So just reflect on that. And I think I suggested you might get a journal when you first started this program and write those things down, because these are things that generate more creativity, that generate more stories, that generate more speaking, that generate more peace, that generate more inspiration. And so sometimes you need to go back and look at them when you need to be inspired and you need to be reminded, just as today reminded you of the people in your life that have been important to you. Any comments or questions or reflections? Yes, Marie?
I would like to reflect because I told Norma earlier that I was having some kind of day. I don't know what kind of day what it was, but I was actually second guessing myself. And some of the things I don't know why. Well, I know why, because I always want to do things perfect, for one thing. So it's like when you do your best, sometimes that's just it. Perfection is not always the answer. Just doing it is the answer. And so I was really, I don't want to say struggling with it, but I was getting on the fence to jump over into the second guessing. And I get a message from a former coworker, and now just my sister, that I met some years ago at the school district. I just came in and started doing, what we needed to do. Was a mess in there and everything, but our friendship grew. And especially, she's so dear to me, is that when the man that I was going to marry, he passed, I had such a difficult time. She would call me and just let me cry. And she would read poetry to me. And this went on for like months until I was able to I got it. But this is how important it is when you meet people, what they play, why they come, when they come, and what they do and how they impart in your life. So this morning when I got up, I got this message from her. She says, "Hello, my sister. I pray all is well with you and your family. You bring such light and love to the world. I love seeing all that you do for those who need it the most." And boom, I'm done. Because now I got the energy and inspiration to say, Marie, you're good. Keep going. Right. And that kind of was the shift in my day. And yes, I could say, oh, I might want to do it this way or whatnot, but it inspired me to say, guess what? Somebody's watching. Somebody sees me. Somebody seen me in the past. They see me now. And they're saying I'm doing the exact same thing that I was doing when they met me that I'm doing now. There's got to be something authentic about that. So yes. I just share that. Yeah.
Thank you. And congratulations on having such great memories and
Thank
recognizing
you.
the value of them. Yes, yes. Thank
I'd
you.
like to share something, Norma, because
Yes,
this
Peggy.
one time I heard you say something about the age. You were saying that you had that problem with your ear at age 8. It was age 8 I realized I wanted to be a Muslim.
Wow.
I saw
Wow.
something on television. I saw something, I said, oh, that's me. I said, that's me. And then as years went by, I began to read more and more and more, and then realize that, oh yeah, that's me. Someone in my family must have been a Muslim, and we must have been Muslims. And sure enough, when I read about some of the Gullah people, a lot of them, some of them were Muslims. They were brought over here to grow rice, and they were brought from the rice coast, some of them. And they were brought from the rice coast, and so they were brought here to grow rice. And so some of those people were Muslims. And so I really believe that that's where my roots really were. And so yeah, and I remember that you said there was something about the age you were when you have these,
Yes.
this light into authenticity. I don't know, but I think it was when I was 8.
Well, age 8 seems to be a powerful, because I've talked to a lot of people over the years and talking about what shifted and what directed them. And a lot of people have had major experience. A lot of people who are in the field that I'm in and doing change in the world had something significant in their life happen around the age of 8. And many of them mention the age 8, which I find very fascinating. And then there's another lady that I've had on the calls before. Her name is Toni Holmes. And she talks about how the things you were doing before you were 7 are the things that really represent your true authentic self. And those are the things you should be returning to and remembering what you did at 7 and how important that is. So, keep that in mind as well. Anybody else? So I hope this was helpful for you and reflective, and helping you to go dig deeper to your own authenticity and looking at the source of your authenticity and how you can be the source for other people. One of the things that I say a lot is that maybe we can't change the world. It's too big and too complicated and too crazy, but we can change our own world. And when we change our own world to be more authentic, we impact those that are around us and help them be more authentic. And you proved that to me today. You validated that by saying how people in your life have helped you to be more authentic by how they were role models to you and how they inspired you. Next week, I want to inspire you in a different way. I've invited my Australian mentor, Barry, to be our guest. So Barry is a very dynamic man, and he too is a walk-in. I can say that to you guys. And we talk a lot we have a lot in common. I talk about authenticity. He has a game called Authentic Communication. When we first met, he had his game, I had my authenticity. And we have found many parallel paths since we've been connected. So that would be a good call. He'll be with us the entire call. So I encourage you to be here and be on time. And Barry will be here. It'll be right after I have a call with him and our group that we're doing with him. He's doing a special call. So I confirmed that today. So be here next week. Barry's from Australia. It'll be 9:30 in the morning for him or 9 o'clock in the morning when we meet. But he'll be fresh and ready for you. And I'm going to ask him if he'll do some clearing. Because what he does is since it's a small group, he talks to you and he helps identify where your blocks are. And then he clears them for you. And when he clears a block for one person on the call, he clears it for everybody. So I'm going to ask him if he will do that for us next week when he comes on the call. So you can look forward to that. And any questions you want to bring to ask him. So he's a great guy. So any other comments, questions, or feedback? All right, then I want to thank you. Those of you that haven't done the webinar yet, keep in mind that it's on Thursday at 4 o'clock, and you're welcome to attend. If you haven't, if you don't know what I'm talking about, there's an email that came out today, one coming out tomorrow. And if you do nothing but read the emails, they're pretty interesting, especially the one on Thursday. So take a look at those ones I'm sending out, and then join me on Thursday at the call at 4 o'clock our time, Eastern, 4 o'clock Pacific time. And other than Thursday, I will see you guys next Tuesday. Have a great week and stay inspired and continue to inspire others and be authentic. Thanks.
Thank you.
All right. See you then.